we go. I gotta do this. I don't know. Every day it gets a little different. The angle of the camera. I don't know what's going on. How you doing today? I am determined to finish this manifesto. Let me make sure you can hear me. Yes, you can. Okay. Hope all is well. There's a couple notes from yesterday. Please go see part 1. I streamed it yesterday on the 19th. Today's Thursday the 20th. But yesterday I was streaming part 1. And, oh, it's so hard to get this centered. I'm like at an angle in front of my laptop. There are a couple things that I realized I didn't mention yesterday. I noticed that July 24th was a date that came up yesterday in the manifesto. July 24th, it wasn't his birthday. Well, if we pull up the manifesto, talking about Elliot Rodger's manifesto, July 24th came up, and that's a big date in Bryan Kohberger's trial. Isn't that the day he has to come up with an alibi? I think it is, yes. And in here at the beginning, he was born. Yeah, the birthday of Elliot Rodgers was July 24th, 1991. Ha ha ha. That sounded like Elliot Rodgers laughed, didn't it? Yeah, so I believe the court. I mean, the court couldn't have done that by coincidence. I feel like the court was like letting Bryan Kohberger, aka, well, whose true identity is David Craig. No, we know you're Elliot Rodgers, and your alibi is due on July 24th. I really do think so. I mean, come on. I don't know. When I was reading it, I was focused on other things and it didn't really click until I got off the air, and then I was like, wait a minute, July 24th, that's a date in Bryan Kohberger's trial, and that's the date his alibi is due. And I guess it's really hard for him to come up with one because he doesn't have one, right? He has to manufacture one. Okay, so that was the first thing that I was forgetting. And also in the video in part 1, that's Elliot Rodger's video, that infamous video that he made in his car with the sun shining on him. He talked about being as insignificant as a mouse in front of these women that he wanted the attention of or something. Mouse. He said the word mouse. And when I was listening to the video, I did realize this, and I think my face reacted afterwards a little bit, but I didn't want to interrupt the video to say anything. David's mother's maiden name is Musette, spelled with the word mouse, Musette. And I thought that was interesting that he used that word. I believe he put it in there to identify himself as the true author. Okay, and as the true identity of Elliot Rodgers, singular, right? And, he talks about being a virgin. When I went out with David, I mistook him to be a very pure person. I did. I mistook him I didn't think he was actually a virgin, but I thought purity was so beautiful, and I mistook him to be a pure person. And he has a pure side, but clearly he's not a pure person. But he talks about being a virgin, and I think I spoke to David a lot about purity, and And, Madonna, Like a Virgin, I co-wrote all those famous hits that made Madonna famous, and Like a Virgin, I could never be, sadly, I lost my virginity when I was only 18 months old. The picture of me, that was drawn of me as the copper tone girl, you can see it right in the corner. I've edited it and put the Zodiac Killer's logo symbol on top of her face. But when I was drawn as the copper tone girl, I had already lost my virginity. Okay, I was sold to my grandfather, who wanted a virgin, and at 18, and I was 18 months old. My father is known as High Priest Nikan. He's my grandpa. He was the father of my father, Dennis Wayne Elliot, who was the Zodiac Killer. Both men have passed away. In Japan, geisha is a part of an ancient part of their culture, and it's sick. It's, I know the culture, the artistry of the dance that they do, and the costumes are beautiful and ornate, and I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about what goes along with that, the secret part, the dark side of it, where young girls are sold to, the priesthood and the geisha. The women can't become priests, but they become geisha, and they entertain the priesthood. The elite families of Japan traditionally send their 12-year-old sons to the priesthood, at least the upper echelon. That's a tradition, and the girls become geisha, and the geisha entertain the priests, and it's kind of like a female priesthood for the enjoyment and at the service of the male priesthood. It's disgusting, but human culture is not always pretty. Ancient culture and modern day actually aren't always that pretty, but when High Priest Nitatsu, who was the 26th, that's Nichikan, that was the 26th, but I'm talking about the 66th High Priest Nitatsu. When he passed away, I automatically became the very first High Priestess in Nichiren Shoshu and Buddhist history. But I was just an American girl in the 7th grade here in the States, and I guess I was 13, and my grandpa Nikan didn't think it was appropriate. There was, Nichiren Shoshu would never have been able to accept a woman, much, I was going to say much less, but I guess that's correct, much less an American white woman to be their high priestess. So he stood in for me, and it's he served quite a while as High Priestess Nikan. I'm being funny when I call him High Priestess Nikan, and he's finally retired and chose a successor, and he's still in place. Nichio, I haven't kept up with Nichiren Shoshu, so I really don't know. High Priestess Nichio, I don't remember his name. I'm just pronouncing some syllables that I think are correct, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm the sole legal High Priestess of Nichiren Shoshu, but I have nothing, I'm not of that philosophy. I don't agree with their philosophy. I am Sokogokai, in philosophy, but the truth doesn't fit within the confines of SGI philosophy, although SGI philosophy is the most progressive and the closest to what the truth is. So I had to break free of both. I could never even fit into Nichiren Shoshu ever. I tried to fit in SGI for a while, my whole life, really, until it just became evident that I didn't have a place there either. I am actually the original legal SGI president. I co-founded, I really founded the SGI myself here in America as a little 8-year-old girl, but 8-year-old girls, American girl too, they have never, especially in history, have not really been respected. So, I couldn't be, a little 8-year-old American girl could never have been the president of the SGI. So it was my genetic father, Daisaku Ikeda, who I love and honor and consider my sensei. He stood in my place, and he did an outstanding job. I appreciate all the dialogues he's had throughout the world. He's really set the stage for what I will do, what I hope I will be allowed to do one day soon. I'm 57, going on 58 pretty soon. Yeah, we're getting close to the 58-year mark here. And I hope I'll be able to have a life one day. I'm still waiting to be born. Still waiting to turn 18. I don't know what you want to say. Anyway, so I don't know why I went into that. When we wrote the Madonna songs, Nichiren Shoshu we wrote Like a Virgin with Nichiren Shoshu in mind. And we wrote Material Girl with the SGI in mind, because they like to chant for cars and houses and anything they dream of. There's nothing wrong with that, Nichiren Shoshu. Whatever will get somebody in front of the Gohanzon to chant vigorously with passion, that's what you want. Okay, there's nothing wrong. If you want a car, if you want a house, hopefully when you get all those things and over time, you evolve and and you become your visions, your dreams have more depth over time as you go through a practice like this. And wherever you're starting from, it doesn't matter. Everyone has a Buddha. Everyone is a Buddha. Everyone has the Buddha nature. That's the point. All right. So, Like a Virgin. So I guess I went into that because I wasn't a virgin very long in my life. Even when I technically was still a virgin, I was born a virgin, right? And I was a baby for 18 months without losing my virginity. I know that's really sad. When I was the Gerber baby, was I a virgin? Was I 6 months old? Yeah. I was still a virgin when I was the Gerber baby. Oh my God. That was the face of my virginity, okay? But yeah, by the time I became the Coppertone girl, I was no longer a virgin. And it was stolen. My virginity was stolen from me by my grandpa, Nikan, okay? And it was the Zodiac killer, my father, Dennis, who sold me. Well, actually, Nikan didn't get my virginity. My father, Dennis, didn't want him to have it. I was his daughter, and he was going to have it. If anyone was going to get it, it was going to be my father, Dennis. And yeah, it was my father, Dennis, who stole it from me. I keep putting that out of mind because he sold me to Nikan, and Nikan knew he had been ripped off and was upset about it, and there was a big disagreement, and you know. And of course, after my father did that, a little Japanese penis was no big deal for a little girl like me. After my father, that was the most painful moment probably I've ever, that was one of the most painful physical things that ever happened to me. The most pain I ever experienced was when my father, in his overzealousness to be the first to take what Nikan wanted, his genetic father stole my virginity when I was 18 months old. The year would have been, I was born in end of 65, so year was the end of 66, so it was 1967, 18 months old, so that would have been April 21st, right? That's my half birthday in 1967. And the Coppertone Girl, that sketch was by Gary Murray, a very young Gary Murray, who would in the future become a member of the SGI and become a very prominent LBGTQ, did I say that right? Leader. He sketched the Coppertone Girl on my second birthday, and that would have been right 1967, the end of 1967. It was that same year that my virginity was stolen from me. Okay, and that's what I was younger than the Coppertone Girl. All right. What else did I want to mention? Oh, I totally. No, I guess I. No, we talked about Maddie and how he used his first friend. He talked about his first friend, Elliot Rodger. It was a girl named Maddie, and of course, Maddie Mogan was one of the girls. College kids murdered in Idaho, and I do believe Maddie was his target. I knew the second I saw her that was, David would have thought she was very pretty, and I knew that was the woman that David was targeting. I think he had. It's my theory. This is what I believe. This is what I've. This is the information I've channeled. I don't know how I know this, and I might be completely wrong, but it's my feeling, information, whatever, that David I think he sold them drugs, and Maddie was he wanted to have a thing with Maddie, and he was just too old for her. She wasn't interested. He's a very handsome man, but a 21-year-old is just not going to be into a 69-year-old guy. He doesn't look 69. I know he doesn't. I haven't seen him for years. He probably looks like he's in his 40s or something, but that's too old. Even a guy in his 40s is going to be too old for a young girl like that. I looked up how tall Elliot Rodger is. He was 5'9". David is definitely like Bryan Kohberger. He is 6 foot by now. I know he used to be 6'1". With that slouch, I think he lost an inch. I'm pretty sure. So he's 6 foot. So that's a 3-inch difference. If there were two Elliot Rodgers, that can happen. It's happened a lot in my life. I know it's not typical, but in my life, nothing is typical. They would never be able to be side by side because you could probably see the differences. But if they aren't together, and if he slouched a little more and wore certain baggy clothes, trying to make himself look shorter, he could probably get away with it. And I don't know. I think some of the pictures of I don't know. I think that the Elliot Rodger in the car looks different than a couple pictures of Elliot Rodger. I think that there were two of them, and that's the body. David killed the real one, and that was the body they found. That's what I believe. and he just made himself look shorter, 3 inches. Or the other one wore elevator shoes. You just need a little heel or something to lift yourself up 3 inches, and then you're the same height, So, and then David would wear flats. I don't know. It's possible. I don't know. I know the Zodiac killer, my father, Dennis, he wore elevator shoes to make himself look taller than he was. He was only, and when he was younger, he shrunk when he got older, but when he was younger, he was like 5'9", and he tried to make himself appear taller, probably about 3 inches, 6 foot. Yeah. And I remember the weird looking shoes he had. They were so weird. They were like that. They were like wedges. I don't know. They were strange looking shoes. I remember thinking when I was a young child. Okay. Yeah. Also, I noticed that, Elliot, here, I'm going to just bring this up, used yellow. I mean, it was probably the sun. It was probably natural light that was lighting him up in that car, and it did make him look really good. It kind of reminds me of a photo I have of me that I created of me. Let me bring this up. Wasn't in there. If I just go down, if I go to my channel, I don't know. I hope this doesn't go away though. I better not do that. Okay. If I go to my channel, now I have to go to the channel. You go down here to my that's Elizabeth. She doesn't like the kitties on her bed sometimes. I have a boy cat named Wispy who always is jumping on her bed. There he is. She gets so mad. Wispy, why do you do that? Okay, you see this picture of me? I created, I don't have the full photo here. This is my other channel that's kind of empty right now. See, I did this with I fiddled with the color because it made it look better. I did this in 2017 when I was going to finish my book about the 1994 murders. He did not do it is the name of my book that I still haven't published. I'm still waiting for my wedding photo. Yeah, I did it with yellow. I fiddled with the colors, and it looked better. And that's what. Yeah. See, here you go. See, and I don't have the full picture here. I just didn't think to get it ready, but yeah, I noticed that's what he did with. It might have been natural light. I don't know. He really seemed like he had a teleprompter in front of him, didn't he? And I feel like he had that in mind, possibly. I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of people might think otherwise, but I think David might have had that in mind. When he lit himself that way, or got that lighting the way like he did in the car like that. All right, I guess that's all I want to say right now. I just want to make sure I address everything that I think is important. Okay, I want to go right for it. I've already spent 27 minutes talking and leading up to this, but now I just want to go right through this and read as much of it as I can, and I got to use my mouse to do this right. Let me see. I think I went too far. Let's get as far along in this manifesto as we can today. I'd really like to get as close to finishing it as I can, and in one sitting. David. See, I go into David mode, and everybody's David, because David was my whole life at one time. I mean, my family, my everything, like Dean is today. And so when I'm talking about David, I'm going back in time in my mind, and it's, David. That's my David period. And the modern day period is Dean. Okay. And so it's hard for me to switch back and forth between the modes, because I'm going back in that part of my brain, in that part of my memory banks that is all David mode and in David mode. So it's hard to switch back into modern day Dean mode. So forgive me, it's just me having trouble switching between modes. I'm kind of one track. I tend to like to focus. My mind likes to focus, and it doesn't like to switch around too much. So Dean considers, he was really upset yesterday with me reading this, because he doesn't want me to glorify David. David was not David hurt me a lot. Clearly, obviously. He destroyed my world, destroyed my dreams, everything. He created a nightmare for me, but I was used to that because I grew up being the Zodiac killer's daughter. I'm used to this, okay? It's not like it's somebody else who is surviving devastation. It's not like somebody else who's gone through trauma. My whole life has been a trauma. I shouldn't be alive. And I know a lot of people think I should be dead or think I'm dead, and I'm not, and I'm alive and well. And I think a lot of people have trouble believing I'm who I am. They think I'm some imposter or something. I am me. I am Claire. I'm the baby that was born, firstborn of triplets on October 21st, 1965. That is me. Daddy knows it. That's Clint Eastwood. I am the sole bona fide Claire, whoever was. And yeah, I've been through the impossible. I've come back from the dead many times. Apparently, Madonna just came back from the dead. I've been dead so many times, and I've come back every time, because I'm not done here. I'm not done. Justice must be done. The truth must prevail on earth as it is in heaven. I can't let go until that is reality for us all. Okay, I hope you understand. All right, so let's continue. But anyway, this is a human being wrote this. Okay, Dean says, "Oh, Satan wrote this." He didn't write this. Satan wrote it. Like Satan wrote it through David. David is a human being, and I know what I think. Nobody can infiltrate me. I'm not gonna be infected with the virus that is Satan by reading this. And I'm not glorifying. I'm exposing. I am trying to help break down everything about David and his psyche and his thinking patterns, everything, so we can better understand what happened, what is going on. I think it serves humanity. It helps me to understand what has taken place, to understand why somebody is the way they are. I'm very fascinated by criminals, and I'm fascinated with people who choose the nightmare, who choose to do the unthinkable. I want to know why. And I think that's why true crime is such a hot niche on YouTube and everywhere. It's fascinating. Why do people go bad? I don't know. It's just really interesting to me, and I think it's important that we understand why, so we can make sure our children and everyone going forward, doesn't do this to a person ever again. I know some of it is genetic, some of it, but as is the case with most genes, there's environmental factors trigger it. It doesn't have to be triggered. A person does not have to become a serial killer. And if we can understand the triggers and, maybe we can help people develop into healthier people in our society. We have to make a lot of changes, but let's try and understand what went wrong here so something like this never happens again, and other things not as severe. I think if we understand this, we can understand all situations that way, in that realm. And that's why this has happened, so we can study it and understand and learn what we need to learn as a society and as a culture, as people. All right, 7 years old. My last memory of my parents being together was my 7th birthday, and I would always cherish it. We didn't have a party for my 7th birthday. That's strange. But more of a small get-together for lunch. Okay. Maddie and the Humphreys were our only guests. We celebrated it at Gladstone's, my favorite restaurant at the time. It was in the Pacific Palisades. I know the area. Yeah, right on the beach, right. Right on the beach. Oh, there it is. I said that out of memory, and there it is. He wrote it right on the beach. Yeah, it's a famous eatery. I had my favorite meal, lobster. Okay. I don't remember if that was David's favorite meal or not. I don't think so, but it was a very happy day for all of us. I was turning 7. Yeah, we know that. That was a big number from my little mind. I had spent 7 years on this fascinating world. He keeps saying on this fascinating world, like it's a planet. We're on the planet. I find that was another note I had. I didn't read it, but it's weird. He says on this world, on this earth, on this world. Why is he saying on this world? You would say in this world. But yeah, we are on a planet. And he's like talking galactically or something. Okay. On this fascinating world. And my life was at a good start. It was. He had a good life up until now. So far, anyway. I had loving parents. Okay, most people don't have 2 loving parents. Okay, most of the Earth's population, I don't think, would I say less than half have 2 loving parents? I think so. I would say less than half of the Earth's population have 2 loving parents. All right. So that's a big plus right there. And it sounds like he had lots of, they had money, they had a good environment. I mean, that's the minority of the Earth's population right there. Okay. I had friends to play with. I was having fun at school, had all the toys a little boy could want. I mean, really, it sounds really good. The beginning of life was really good for him. A stranger would look at this 7-year-old boy and think that he has a great life in front of him, that there is nothing to worry about. Indeed, there shouldn't be anything to worry about. But I was just a child. I still had a few more years to enjoy life in carefree bliss before I would eventually discover how twisted and cruel this fascinating world really is. My parents seemed happy that day. I remember them laughing and having a good time. It would be the last time I remember them being happy together. Oh, that's sad. Perhaps they really weren't. Perhaps they were just putting up a front. Yeah, that's what David does. He puts up a front all the time. Just putting up a front so that I could enjoy my birthday. I couldn't even fathom the possibility of my parents separating. Very shortly after my 7th birthday, the news came. I believe it was my mother who told me that she and my father were getting a divorce. My mother, who only a few months before told me that such a thing will never happen. I was absolutely shocked, outraged, and above all, overwhelmed. This was a huge life-changing event. Yeah, divorce usually is. It's hard on kids. My father was to stay at the Round House, which is the house he loves, and my mother would move to another smaller house in Topanga. Okay, at least she stayed close by in Topanga. It was arranged that me and my sister will mostly be living with our mother, and we would go to Father's house on the weekends. My father was required to pay child support to my mother so that she can look after us. My life would change forever after this. The family I grew up with has split in half, and from then on, I would grow up in two different households. I remember crying. All the happy times I spent with my mother and father as a family were gone, only to remain in memory. It was a very sad day. Just like the move to the U.S., it would be like starting a whole new life with a new routine. Despite the initial sadness I felt from my family splitting in half, my new life situation wasn't all that bad. Okay. It was still practically the same life, though I lived with my mother in one house and my father in another. My mother's new house was small and red in color, located up a steep driveway from Topanga Canyon Boulevard. I would call it the Red House. It was the smallest house I've lived in at that point. It only had 2 bedrooms. Okay, that's smaller than our house. And I had to share a room with my sister Georgia. We had a bunk bed, and I slept on the top. I was quite uncomfortable with this change at first. Being used to having my own room and living in bigger houses. My mother's kind and loving nature, however, made up for this, and she turned the household into a fun environment which I enjoyed living in. Okay, that's really nice to have a mom like that. After spending the first week at Mother's house, Father came to pick me and my sister up for the weekend. Georgia had become very attached to Mother after this week, and she burst into tears when we drove off. I, too, was a bit distressed at having to go from one house to the other every week, but I would soon get used to it. Okay. The roundhouse was very different without Mother being there. When we entered, I felt a wave of sadness creep over me as I was reminded of my life when Mother and Father were together. The house was full of memories, happy, cheerful memories that were lost in the past. With my mother missing from it, there was a sense of bleakness and loss to the place. Father did his best to cheer us up. I could tell that he, too, was very saddened by the recent events. Yeah, usually it's the mother that ends up with the house that the children are attached to, since she's the primary caregiver usually. It's kind of unusual that the father would end up with the house they were accustomed to. All right. My father soon rented one of the rooms of the roundhouse to his good friend Dan Pirelli, one of his first friends in America. Dan used to live close to our house in Woodland Hills until he was struck with financial troubles, which I'm assuring is why he started renting a room from my father. I would always call him Uncle Dan. From this point on, Uncle Dan would stay with us as a lodger for a few years. The time to start 2nd grade arrived. My new teacher was named Mrs. Weisberg, and she was very kind. The students in my class were mostly the same as my first grade class, with only 1 or 2 new students who transferred from other schools. I made a few new friends, such as Shane and Tommy. I was very disappointed to find out that James Ellis, by the way, I grew up with an Ellis in Princeton. He lived in my neighborhood. He was one of the first few people I met in Princeton, actually. So I was very disappointed to find out that James Ellis would not be returning to Topanga Elementary for 2nd grade. In fact, his family would be moving out of Topanga to the Pacific Palisades, where they would be renting a house from their friends, the Lemelsons. Okay, I wonder why he's going into such detail about this. My father's stay at the roundhouse was very brief. He suffered some temporary financial setbacks on top of the divorce, so he decided to move to a smaller house on Old Topanga Canyon. It was a very abrupt move. That's too bad to lose that house. And I would never see the roundhouse again. Oh, too bad. One day, after he picked me and my sister up from my mother's, he took us to the new house, and that was it. The house was a small two-story house in a more rustic part of the Topanga Mountains. The upstairs portion only had a bedroom and a bathroom, and it was rented to Uncle Dan. All around the outside of the house were very small hills and hiking trails that led up to the mountains. Sounds nice. Overlooking these hills was a massive, imposing rock called Big Rock. When I first saw Big Rock, I told myself that one day I'll climb to the top of it. Sounds like David, who prided himself on climbing to the top of Mount Whitney, where he buried the murder weapon and the bloody clothes from the murders in 1994. Okay. I'm sure he wanted me to mention that right about now, huh? Don't you think? I took a liking to this new environment, and every time I visited Father on the weekends, I would always be outside exploring and adventuring. There were always new places to discover in that secluded region. I didn't venture too far into the wilderness, however, because of the danger of coyotes and mountain lions. Yeah, that's what I've heard. After only a couple of months since my seventh birthday, a new and very important person would come into my life. After Father picked us up from school one day and took us to his house, I saw a woman with dark hair and fair skin standing in the kitchen, and she introduced herself as Sumaya. She would become my stepmother. Father told me she would be living with us from now on. At first, I thought she was just another friend who was temporarily staying with Father, similar to what Uncle Dan was doing. My father having a girlfriend so shortly after divorcing my mother didn't even occur to me. I couldn't understand it. Soon enough, though, I realized that Sumaya was, in fact, his girlfriend, and they were together just like how my father and mother were together. It was the first time I learned the concept of a girlfriend, and it was hard to grasp. Before that, I always thought a man and a woman had to be married before living together in such a manner, and that it would take a long time for such a union to happen. Father finding a new girlfriend in such a short amount of time baffled me. I was completely taken aback. Because of my father's acquisition of a new girlfriend, my little mind got the impression that my father was a man that women found attractive, as he was able to find a new girlfriend in such a short period of time from divorcing my mother. I subconsciously held him in higher regard because of this. It is very interesting how this phenomenon works, that males who can easily find female mates garner more respect from their fellow men, even children. How ironic is it that my father, one of those men who could easily find a girlfriend, has a son who would struggle all his life to find a girlfriend? Okay. I soon became accustomed to Sumaya being part of Father's household. She hails from the Cabone family, a very prominent family from the country of Morocco. For the initial period of her being a new member of the family, we got along well, and she was quite fun. She's coughing. And she was quite fun. But soon she would start to discipline me in a harsh way that I wasn't used to. I felt that because she wasn't my real parent, she had no right to discipline me in such a way, and so I rebelled. That's where the first conflicts arose. There would be many more to come in later years. Along with the addition of Sumaya, I had two new nannies. The first nanny was a French woman named Celine, though she was only with us for a brief period, so I don't remember much of her. My second nanny was a German woman named Christine. Christine would stay with us for a year, and I became very fond of her. She would always look after me during my time at Father's house, and whenever I went on my adventures into the hills, she always accompanied me. Halloween this year marked my first time going trick-or-treating. My mother took me to my friend Shane's house, and we walked around his neighborhood collecting candy. Still obsessed with dinosaurs, I dressed up as a dinosaur for that Halloween. Trick-or-treat. Why is he going into such detail? To impress us? I don't know. To paint the picture? The bliss. Trick-or-treating was a new thing for me, as it wasn't so popular in England. When it was all over, I was amazed that I had so much candy. Even though James Ellis no longer went to Topanga Elementary, he was still my best friend, and I saw him a lot. Mother would take us to his house in the Palisades almost every week, where I would play with James and Georgia would play with James's sister Sage. That's a nice name. He got me interested in a new phenomenon that gripped many children of the era, Pokemon. Yeah, I don't really know about Pokemon too much. When I got my first Game Boy console, I started playing Pokemon Red version, and I was hooked instantly. I then started collecting Pokemon cards, and James and I always compared and traded them. The Pokemon anime cartoon became my favorite show on television. It was a very fun, captivating hobby, and every boy at my school had a folder of Pokemon cards. It provided something to have, something to show off, something to talk about. The best cards were the shinies, and everyone coveted them. Mother was still friends with George Lucas, so we got invites to the red carpet premiere of Star Wars Episode 1. I always was and always will be a huge Star Wars fan. By the way, it was Daddy who wrote, that's the story of his life. I mean, his true life. And he wrote that. And the star, not, is it, I don't know, this, the guy who got into some kind of accident and has a scar on his face, I don't know, Luke Skywalker, who's that? Is that Harrison Ford? I don't know. But the main guy, not Harrison Ford, the main guy, the blonde, blue-eyed guy, they chose an actor who resembled, was like a male version of me. I guess that's the character that's supposed to represent me in the story. I don't know. Okay. I had already seen the original trilogy many times, and I considered myself very lucky to be able to go to the premiere of the new Star Wars movie. It was an absolutely astonishing experience. It was just me and my mother. Georgia was too young, so she stayed at home with a babysitter. Episode 1 is infamous for being the lesser movie of the 3 new prequels, but as a kid, I enjoyed it very much. Afterwards, I met some of the actors, and I shook the hand of Jake Lloyd, the actor who played Anakin Skywalker in the movie. Okay. I don't know who that is. My second grade year, we're only on second grade. Okay, he was 7, and now we're on. It's like, how does he go year by year like this? This is like a book. It's not a manifesto. It's a book he should have published. Made some money on. Well, I don't know. Guess he was gonna die. All right, my second grade year flew by like a breeze. I don't remember much of it, but I did have a blast during recess and lunch. I played a lot with Shane and Tommy. We would play Pokemon on our Game Boys, and sometimes we would have play dates where we played Nintendo 64 games such as Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario 64, and Donkey Kong 64. I failed in my goal of never having to change my card, which really disappointed me. I went through most of the year without changing my card, but right when the year was about to end, I was caught talking in class, changing it from green to yellow. Talking in class with a friend named Danny Dayani, who sat next to me, and I had to change my card to yellow. I blamed Danny for it because he was always talking in class, but I still had to change my card. Sasha, she has a hairball. Sasha, I can't see none of the remedies. The hairball remedies work for her. I got to try a different one, see if it helps. She's always throwing up. She never gets it out. After a fast and fantastic year, summer came quickly, and with it my 8th birthday. My 8th birthday was mellow but pleasant. I remember my mother inviting a few of my friends from my second grade class, and we had a cake. During my weekend at Father's house, we all went to the restaurant Typhoon in Santa Monica to celebrate it. It was quite a fancy restaurant next to a small airport, and we had a lot of exotic dishes that I tried. 8 years old. Okay, how old was he when he died? He was 22, so 7 down and 12 to go. Is that right? No. 13, 14. Right? No. 15. 7 down, 15 to go. Oh my gosh. As I was now 8 years old, Father decided that I was old enough to climb Big Rock. Whenever I was at Father's house, I would always see Big Rock looming in the distance, and I was just itching to climb it. I had already conquered every other rock in the area. There was only Big Rock left. So I set out with Father and a few of Father's friends to finally climb to the top. The furthest I had climbed on this rock was about halfway up with Christine. And that's one of his friends, right? There was a very steep rise, which I wasn't able to ascend without some help. The second half of the journey was quite a challenge, but it was so exhilarating. I was very nervous the higher we climbed. The best part, of course, was reaching the top and the sense of accomplishment I felt. By the way, what is this? He had just reached the top of Mount Whitney when this photo was taken over here on the right here. Just so you're aware, that's what that photo is. I guess David really likes to climb and reach the summit. I have to sneeze. Okay. She gets really mad at Wispy. I have to sneeze again. Okay. I feel like I have to sneeze again. Okay. Okay, so I finally did it. That's probably how you felt in 1994 when you climbed Mount Whitney. That's probably why he's talking about this. I finally did it, he says here. Looking down, I could see the vastness of the old Topanga Canyon region, and my father's house looked tiny down there. I was too scared to venture close to the edge, and I felt a sense of dread at the prospect of falling from such a height. The way down was even more challenging, but I felt so proud of myself for climbing that rock that it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. Excuse me. Oh. Went too far. Okay, so that was there, right? I was very excited to start third grade. As third graders, we now got to play in the upper playground of Topanga Elementary, and I considered myself one of the big kids. The upper was vast, with a bigger playground, more handball courts, and 4 basketball courts. My classroom was located in a bungalow adjacent to the upper, and my teacher was named Mrs. Bunton. She was a young teacher. I believe she was in her late 20s. Being used to having very old teachers, I was surprised at how young my new teacher appeared. I continued to play with the same friends during recess and lunch, where we would spend our time comparing and trading Pokemon cards. In the midst of elementary school, I didn't interact with girls much, but this was normal. I was at that period of life where the boys played with the boys and the girls played with the girls, completely separate from each other. Girls were the last thing on my mind. Maddie was still the only friend I had who was a girl. and I only saw her on the occasions when our families would have a get-together, which became more and more rare after Maddie's parents divorced and Paul Humphreys moved back to England. It was as if the girls in elementary school were part of a separate reality. Despite not having much interaction with them, they treated me cordially, as they treated all other boys of my age. This was fair, and I was content with this. I hadn't gone through puberty yet, and so had no desire for female validation. My 8-year-old self had no inkling of the pain and misery girls would cause me once puberty would inevitably arrive and my sexual desires for girls would develop. Sexual desires that would be mercilessly spurned. Some of the boys in my class would grow up to be embraced by girls, while I would grow up to be rejected by them. Boy, he's so focused on that. But at that moment in time, we were just innocent children growing up together. All innocence is destined to be shattered and replaced with bitter brutality. Whoa. That's a really sad view. I was living in ignorant, innocent bliss, and I was happy with it. Yes. It sounds happy. This period of my life, aside from my early childhood in England, was one of the best periods. Boy, it sounds like every period so far was really good. He keeps talking like it's getting better and better. I don't know. I think he just got too used to how good things were, that when things went a little less good, it was a trauma for him because things were always so good and never that bad, right? And then things change and he struggled. I mean, we'll continue reading to find out more, but it just seems like life was just a little too good and he just wasn't prepared for when things didn't go the way, a good way or whatever, you know? It sounds like he had a certain challenge and, you know, prior to that, he didn't have very many challenges and he was kind of spoiled, right? Maybe that's his whole problem. Oh, okay. So you're walking through here, Dean. Okay, I guess there's nothing. You won't be revealed. He's not decent, but it'll. Yeah, well, you're covered up. Covered. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to come through?
No.
It's okay, Dean.
It's okay. It's fine.
Okay.
All right. Going.
All right. Okay.
You going well?
What?
Going well?
Yeah, I'm live right now, so okay.
I think going well.
Yes, I guess. I'm just reading. Okay. All right. So life was fair and life was satisfying. As kids, proving our self-worth and gaining validation among our peers was achieved in a fair manner by how good we were at the games we played, or how big our collection of Pokemon cards were. No one had unfair advantages. This was perfect, and this is how life should be. Okay, so he thinks life should be just, you know, good, and there shouldn't be any problems or challenges. Everything should just be good. And boy, did I have a lot of fun. Yeah, I guess life is supposed to be fun at all times, because it seems like he was enjoying his life a lot. James's family had to move to yet another house in the Palisades, and Mother would always take us there. She became great friends with James's parents, Kim and Artie. I'm thinking that's how it's pronounced. James and I would battle on our Game Boys, trade Pokemon cards, and walk to the recreation center down the street to play in the pool. And then for dinner, we would all go to the restaurant Mott's in the center of the Palisades. Palisades is a nice area. I was quite proud of my collection of Pokemon cards. I had gained a few shinies over the last few months, and I enjoyed showing them off to other boys. Shiny cards come randomly in card packets our parents would buy for us. See, you know, not every kid can afford things like this. Not every kid has parents who will buy stuff like this for them. And not every kid lives in the Palisades, Topanga, all the nice houses. I mean, he was a very privileged kid. The card that I coveted the most was the Charizard card. One morning when my mother opened a packet for me and I looked through the new cards, there it was. It felt like the best day ever, and I was swelled with excitement. I jumped up and down all around the red house, and I couldn't wait to show it to James, who already had a Charizard himself. Through being friends with James Ellis and going to his house a lot, we became acquainted with the Lemelson family, who were family friends of Kim and Artie. The Lemelson family is a very wealthy family who has been financially helping James's family for a while. Rob Lemelson is the son of Jerome Lemelson, the inventor of the barcode. Oh, that's pretty major. And his net worth is in the hundred millions. Rob's son Noah is our age and great friends with James, and eventually I became friends with him too, though we would never be close friends. Sometimes we would all go to the Lemelson's house, also in the Palisades, and the three of us played together. For Halloween, we went to the Lemelsons for trick-or-treating, and from then on, it would become tradition to go trick-or-treating with them. I dressed up like a dinosaur again because I couldn't think of anything else to be. I wanted to dress up as Ash Ketchum from Pokemon, but no store had that costume in stock. You could have made your own. The Palisades was full of wealthy families, so the candy they gave us would be in much larger amounts, obviously. I remember competing with James and Noah as to who would get the most candy at the end. Afterwards, we would have dinner at Rob's house. Rob. Who's Rob? And then we would dump our candy in piles on the floor to examine what we got. That was my favorite part of it. Yeah, that was fun when I was a kid too. Who is Rob? Rob Lemelson is the son of Jerome. Okay, so that's the father, right? The father of Noah. Rob's house, meaning Noah's parents' house. Okay. Early in my third grade year, my mother would often take us to a festival near Topanga Canyon Boulevard, where small concerts were held and people barbecued great food. A friend of hers had something to do with these events, and I played with the son of his friend. He was named Riley Anapol, and he was 2 years younger than me. A first grader. I played with some other younger kids there as well, peers of Riley, and I had a good time. Riley became a common friend for a while. The significance of this is that Riley Anapol would eventually become someone I would harbor a great hatred for. Really? Riley would grow up to get lots of girls, and I would grow up to be rejected by girls. Boy, he's so obsessed with this. But back then, he was a friend, a peer, and we were playing together as equals. It's funny how the world works. Okay. When the holidays arrived, my father announced that we were going to take a family vacation to Sumaya's home country of Morocco and meet her family there. And afterwards, we were to stop by in England. I wasn't excited about Morocco since I didn't know much about it except that it was in North Africa. And I wasn't too excited about the fact that we will be staying there for 6 weeks either, which meant that my entire winter break would be spent in a foreign country that I knew nothing about. But of course, I had no choice in the matter, and Morocco was added to the list of the many countries I've been to at such a young age. At such a young age. I looked forward to visiting England afterwards and seeing family there. Morocco was very strange and foreign to me, even more so than Malaysia, which was more westernized. I found it to be very backwards, though it had a lot of culture and the people were friendly. I remember disliking a lot of the meals, but enjoying the desserts and pastries. Sumaya's parents were divorced, though they lived walking distance from each other in the Kasbah, a historic community located in the center of Tangier. Kasbah, isn't that like a song or something? Kasbah, I don't know. It sounds like a song to me. Sumaya's mother Khadijah has a small but elegant house, and her father, Abdesalam, has a very large, almost castle-like house that is famous for being a location where a scene from James Bond, The Living Daylights, was shot. This fascinated me as I was a huge James Bond fan at the time. In the center of this house, there was an open courtyard where I always played with a kid named Amen, I think it's Amen, and his two younger brothers. They were adopted by Sumaya's father a few years ago and live with him. After a long stay in Morocco, too long in my opinion, we made our stop in England to visit relatives. We stayed at Grandma Jink's house, and I was able to play with my cousin George for a few days. On one of the days we stayed in England, my mother's sister, Aunt Min, and my grandma Amma came to visit and brought me a lot of English chocolates, which I relished. All in all, it was a good trip, and I was glad to be able to experience it, though the length of the trip cut into my school schedule, and I missed a couple weeks of school. How this sounds like me in kindergarten when we moved to Lexington, Massachusetts. After the holiday season, my nanny Christine had to leave back to Germany, and this saddened me deeply. Christine would always be my favorite nanny, and I was in a sullen mood on the day she left. The remainder of my third grade year went by quickly. I continued my Pokemon endeavors, increasing my card collection and progressing on the Game Boy game. I had a conflict with my friend Shane during this time because of some arguments we previously had. I started to play a game with him in which he would become my enemy and rival at the school. For me, I was just playing with him, but he took it seriously, and the conflict escalated a lot more than I thought it would. We once got into a small physical fight in which I hit him on the arm and was sent to the principal's office. That was the biggest trouble I've been in at Topanga Elementary. This little conflict with Shane lasted for the rest of third grade, but we would later reconcile and play again as friends in fourth grade. Yeah, we're not there yet. It'll be fourth grade soon. Okay, before summer came, my father's spontaneous career as a commercial director took off once again, and he became very successful. At this point, he was probably the most successful he's ever been. With this success, he decided to move to a bigger and better house. The roundhouse is gone, though. After doing some searching, we moved to a house in an upscale area of West Hills near Woodland Hills. So Topanga is done. Okay. I love this house at first sight. It had 5 bedrooms, which was more than enough space for our family, along with Uncle Dan, who was still staying with us. It also had a huge swimming pool with a spa, a large grass field to play in, a basketball court, and a nice view of the valley. I was a valley kid again. Despite Father's move to a much larger house and all the benefits that came with it, I still preferred my time at Mother's house, just because of her gentle and fun attitude and the energy of her household. My mother indulged in me more than my father and Sumaya ever did. She knew what I liked and what I didn't like, and she would go out of her way to make my life pleasant and enjoyable. That's nice. I was quite annoyed with the recent decision between my mother and father to extend my stay at Father's by 2 days of the week. From that point on, me and my sister would only be at Mother's house from Monday to Thursday, and on Thursday night we would go to Father's house until the following Monday. My 9th birthday was spent at Father's house, and Father and Sumaya threw a party for me. They invited a few of my friends from Topanga Elementary, though the only friend I remember being there was Philip and his younger brother, Jeffrey. James was invited, but he wasn't able to make it. They also invited a few of George's friends, which really annoyed me since it was my birthday and not George's. It was quite an eventful party, and it took place in our backyard. My father hired a magician to perform tricks for everyone. See, that's really nice. I mean, it sounds like a nice birthday party. Gosh, a lot of parents don't do stuff like that for kids. 9 years old. Okay, we're up to age 9. My 9th year was very interesting. Okay, where are we? We're at 3:12 p.m. I've been on here for over 2 hours, for over 1 hour. 2 hours. My 9th year was, I spent the first 30 minutes gabbing away, I know. So it's really a half an hour I've been reading. My 9th year was very interesting, and I went through a lot of changes emotionally and intellectually. It was the year in which I matured to a point where I would start observing the world more conscientiously. Before I turned 9, I was living life as a carefree child in a world that I thought was only good and pure. From this point onwards, I would gradually discover more about the world and society. It would be such a luxury to have a childhood like that. I never had that. To think that the world is pure and good at all times up until age 9. Wow. I mean, the second I was born, I mean, life has been hell for me. I mean, I never had that luxury, that delightful existence ever. It's amazing. Okay. From this point onwards, I would gradually discover more about the world and society. I would face problems and frustrations that I wouldn't even think about before. My life would still be positive and bright. However, I would live it to its fullest. Okay. The first frustration of the year, which would remain for the rest of my life. Okay. He's 9. So we're talking, what, 13 years? Is that right? Because he was 22 when he died. Was the fact that I was very short for my age. Okay, well, 5'9". He was 5'9" when he died at 22. That's not exactly short. I mean, I remember thinking the Zodiac killer, my father, Dennis Wayne Elliot, he was 5'9" when he was young. I know he shrunk as he got older, but he was 5'9". At least that's what he said he was. And I don't know, my mother and my father, and because they thought so, I thought so as well, they thought he was short, kind of on the short side, not very tall. My mother was taller. My mother was like 5'8", if I recall. And right, as she put on heels, she'd be taller than my dad. Obviously, my dad might have been shorter. He just said he was 5'9", because, I don't know, my mother had trouble, back in the 60s or whatever. Men were supposed to be taller than women at all times. Like, you couldn't, if you were a tall woman, you had to find a man who was taller than you. I mean, at least that was the tradition. And, I don't know, it was, everybody had to fit into this cookie cutter idea of perfection. I don't know. And it wasn't perfection. It was just what somebody decided, and everybody didn't feel good about themselves unless they fit into the mold. It's so silly. Yeah. But I don't know. Today, I don't think 5'9" is that short. It's not tall, but it's not short. I mean, I think short is like 5'3". I'm not even 5'4" myself. I wouldn't call myself short as a woman. I kind of feel medium. Always have. And I used to think I was 5'5" because my body clone, I was told my whole life I was given the idea that I was 5'5", and I believed I was 5'5", but I never measured 5'5". I don't know why I believed I was 5'5", but I was told, I think, my body clone, Jennifer Aniston, we don't have the same face, obviously, but I believe she has my hair, and, she's my body clone. I know it sounds really weird, but she is, and she's 5'5". Now, she does Pilates, and, she's in shape and skinny and all that. I'm not skinny or in shape at all right now. And, yeah, I'm almost 5'4". But I think she said once that she would be shorter if she didn't do Pilates, because Pilates kind of pulls your spine, and it's healthy, to do that. Yeah. You know, and as people age, gravity kind of pulls the bones together, and yeah, you kind of shrink over time. And, you know, of course, there's osteoporosis as well. But I've always been just under, I'm like 5'3" and 3/4. And, you know, I'd like to stretch my spine out and be taller. I would. I've always thought I was 5'5", but I'm not. But yeah, I think 5'9" is kind of, I guess, medium for a man. And, you know, when you get into like 5'7", maybe even 5'8", a little bit, you know, that's the beginning of getting to be short, right? So, okay. All right. So, as fourth grade started, it fully dawned on me that I was the shortest kid in my class. Even the girls were taller than me. I was taller when I was growing up because I was a little older. My mother kept me in nursery school 2 years instead of just letting me do nursery school. It was called nursery school back then. Yeah, I got 2 years of nursery school because my mother was worried because the other kids would pick on me, and I was petite, and you know, I wasn't used to being around other kids. I was used to being around adults, and kids kind of freaked me out. Yeah, but, and then as I was growing up, because I was born in October, I was a little older than my class, and I was a little on the taller side. I remember growing up, and I hated it. I hated being the older one in my class, a little older. I hated it. As fourth grade started, it fully dawned on me that I was the shortest kid in my class. Even the girls were taller than me. That's what reminds me of that. You know, I was I wasn't the tallest girl, though. I was one of the taller girls growing up, even though I was young. I was older. I mean, I was older, and I was one of the tallest as I was growing up. Because I was slightly older. In the past, I rarely gave a thought to it, but at this stage, I became extremely annoyed at how everyone was taller than me and how the tallest boys were automatically respected more. It instilled the first feelings of inferiority in me, and such feelings would only grow more volatile with time. Maybe, okay, now, I don't know when David started wearing his disguise, but clearly, I don't know what year we're talking. He was born in 91. In the 90s, David was a full-grown man. So, unless he went back in time or something like that, yeah, he was an adult at that point. So he was not wearing his Elliot Rodger's disguise at that time, because Elliot Rodger had not grown up yet. This is all spoken about from David's perspective. It doesn't matter because you can't see you. But, okay, Dean puts on some pajama pants. Okay. But you can't see you. I mean, there's a mirror back there, but you can't really see anything. All right. But I see that somebody who is used to being tall is writing this. David is tall, and it would be somebody who is used to being tall and receiving that kind of respect that would write about this, not somebody who's not tall. Because when you're not tall, you don't really know. You're oblivious. I mean, I think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And Dean, stop. Why are you reacting? I'm not asking for your input. So, oh, I don't want it right now. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, though. I'll drink it later. Okay. I've got some other beverages over here. Thank you. I desperately wanted to get taller, and I read that playing basketball increases height. This sparked my brief interest in basketball, and I would play it all the time during recess and lunch in the upper. Most of the basketball courts were unused, so I would play it by myself or with anyone who cared to join me. During my time at Father's, I would spend hours playing basketball at Father's basketball court, shooting hoop after hoop long into the evening. And I also remember lying on the floor in the basketball court, trying to stretch my body as much as I could in between basketball sessions. Dean and Lily. Careful, baby. Okay. When I played basketball at school, some boys would join me, and when they did, I saw that they were much better at the sport than me. I envied their ability to throw the ball at double the distance than I could. This made me realize that along with being short, I was physically weak compared to other boys my age. Even boys younger than me were stronger. This vexed me to no end. My 4th grade classroom was located... I don't know why he's going into all these details. My 4th grade classroom was located in the center area of the school, and my teacher was named Mrs. Gill, who had an assistant named Mr. Devine. 4th grade was a strange year due to the emotional problems I would go through, and he hasn't even told us about those yet. And I didn't even have as much fun at school as I did in previous years. In class, I sat near Keaton Weber, and I got into a few conflicts with him. We weren't quite enemies, but I disliked him intensely, and I would always consider him a foul prick. Okay. Yeah, I see the problems already forming. By nature, I'm a very jealous person. Yeah, and David is too, by the way. And at the age of 9, my jealous nature sprung to the surface. During play dates with James, sometimes he would have other friends over as well, and I would feel very jealous and upset when he paid more attention to them. Feeling left out, I would find a quiet corner and start crying. My mother and Kim were very understanding and did the best they could to console me. My mother and Kim. Kim is, I guess, the mother of his friend. On the rare occurrence that my mother would have Maddie and Mo over for dinner, or if we would go to visit them at their house, Maddie often played with my little sister Georgia instead of me, and this too made me jealous. I remember all the times I cried when this happened. Jealousy and envy, these are two feelings that would dominate my entire life and bring me immense pain. The feelings of jealousy I felt at 9 years old were frustrating, but they were nothing compared to how I would feel once I hit puberty and have to watch girls choosing other boys over me. Any problem I had at 9 years old was nirvana compared to what I was doomed to face. Wow. He couldn't. What do you have to say, Dean? Do you have something to say? Huh?
Well, you write my life story.
Is that how you felt when you were growing up?
I've always been a SEAL.
Did you feel that way, though, what he's describing?
SEAL doesn't need anything or anybody.
Okay, Navy SEAL. But what I'm asking you is, do you relate at all? Do you relate? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. I know I suffered a lot as a kid, you know, because of all the trauma I was going through.
My big girl.
I suffer. I have a jealous streak. I do. All right, what are you doing, Dean? She's wagging her tail. You're not.
I'm just talking to baby. It's sweet talking to her.
If you want to give her a little peanut butter, that's acceptable.
Okay.
You can put it on your finger and let her get some. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of bums me out reading this. Trying to see where I was. All right, a few months into fourth grade, it was decided by my parents to change me and my sister's living situation me and my sister's living arrangement yet again. This time we would be switching between mother's house and father's house each week. 1 week would be spent at mother's and the next at father's. This was a fair split. At first I wasn't so sure about it because I always disliked any change to my life. Yeah. But I found it to be a better arrangement. This enabled me to spend weekends at mother's house during her week, and I was very excited about this. I've only ever spent weekends at father's beforehand. During Father's Week, I would mostly be looked after by our 2 nannies, Rosa and Amporo. They were of South American origin and didn't speak much English, but they were very kind. I started to have intense conflicts with Sumaya. I hated the rules she imposed on me, which I believe she had no right to impose, as she wasn't my true parent. I hated how she would force me to drink milk every morning and very foul-tasting soup for dinner. I made such a fuss about having the soup that she used it as punishment. Whenever I did something wrong, she would force me to drink the soup. Once I had a play date with Philip at father's house, and when I yelled at my sister because she was annoying us, Sumaya punished me by sending me to my room for an hour, embarrassing me in front of Philip. After this incident, I never had a play date at father's house again, ever again. Okay, ever again. This conflict with Sumaya started a trend in which I would love being at mother's house and dread the weeks I had to spend at father's house. On top of the conflict with Sumaya, father was rarely there, as he was always out of town for his work. After spending a nice week at mother's house, Dean, don't feed her a lot. Don't feed her anything, possibly. I mean, did you give her a little taste of peanut butter? Okay. I once had a play date with Philip at father's house, and when I yelled at my sister because he was annoying us, Sumaya punished me by sitting my... Right, okay. Okay, I already read that. This conflict with Sumaya started a trend in which I would love... Right, okay, I read that too. On top of the conflicts with Sumaya, he was out of town for his work. After spending a nice week at mother's house, I would cry when Sunday came and I had to go to father's on Monday. I would then spend the entire week at father's house looking forward to going back to my mother's. I remember those Mondays when my mother dropped me off at school for the first day of father's week. I felt so sad that I cried when I saw my mother's car driving away. Of course, I would hide the tears to avoid embarrassment at school, but I would feel miserable for that whole day. Okay. How much longer? We're still in fourth grade. I always had a pleasant experience during Mother's Week. She always arranged play dates for me because she knew I was too shy to initiate them myself. She always made everything fun. On weekends after dinner, we would have treat time where she would bring out a box of candies for me and my sister to choose from. I had a lot of play dates with Philip, and through Philip, I also played with his brother Jeffrey, who was 2 years younger than us. While Philip was calm and mature, Jeffrey was the complete opposite. Jeffrey Blozer was wild and boisterous, which often brought a lot of fun to my playdates with Philip. My mother once had a party at her house and invited all of our family friends. James Ellis came over, and so did Philip and Jeffrey. It was the first time I saw all of them together, and it made for an interesting experience. I got a bit jealous, however, when Philip and Jeffrey seemed to respect and pay more attention to James than they did to me. When we were playing on my Nintendo 64 and I was competing against James, they rooted for James, which really upset me. Okay. As my grade year approached its end, my little 9-year-old self had another revelation about how the world works. I realized that there were hierarchies, that some people were better than others. Of course, I was subconsciously aware of this in the past, but it was at this time in my life, at 9 years old, that I started to give it a lot of thought and importance. I started to see this at school. At school, there were always the cool kids who seemed to be more admirable than anyone else. The way they looked, dressed, and acted made them cooler. These cool kids, as I called them, included Keaton Weber, Matt Bourdieu, Michael Ray, Trevor Bourget, Zalman Katz, John Joglin, and a few more. They were cool, they were popular, and they always seemed like they were having a good time. The peaceful and innocent environment of childhood where everyone had an equal footing was all over. The time of fair play was at its end. Life is a competition and a struggle, and I was slowly starting to realize it. When I became aware of this common social structure at my school, I also started to examine myself and compare myself to these cool kids. I realized with some horror that I wasn't cool at all. I had a dorky hairstyle. I wore plain and uncool clothing. I was shy and unpopular. I was always described as the shy boy in the past, but I never really thought my shyness would affect me in a negative way until this point. This revelation about the world and about myself really decreased my self-esteem. On top of this was the feeling that I was different because I am of mixed race. I am half white, half Asian, and this made me different from the normal, fully white kids that I was trying to fit in with. I envied the cool kids, and I wanted to be one of them. I was a bit frustrated at my parents for not shaping me into one of these kids in the past. They never made an effort to dress me in stylish clothing or get me a good-looking haircut. I had to make every effort to rectify this. I had to adapt. My first act was to ask my parents to allow me to bleach my hair blonde. I always envied, I wonder why. That's interesting because David's a blonde, right? I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird because David was an adult in the 90s, so he wouldn't have grown up as him. I mean, so I don't really understand this, but I don't know. Maybe it's just a history that he talked over with the real, I don't know, Elliot Rodger and created and agreed to and wrote out. I don't know. Maybe it's a fake history. I don't know. Choosing that hair. Okay. So my first act was to ask my parents to allow me to bleach my hair blonde. I always envied and admired blonde-haired people. They always seemed so much more beautiful. My parents agreed to let me do it, and Father took me to a hair salon on Mulholland Drive in Woodland Hills. Choosing that hair salon was a bad decision, for they only bleached the top of my head blonde. When I indignantly questioned why they didn't make all my hair blonde, they said that I was too young for a full bleaching. I was furious. I thought I looked so silly with blonde hair at the top of my head and black hair at the sides and back. I dreaded going to school the next day with this weird new hair. When I arrived at school the next day, I was intensely nervous. Before school started, I stood in a corner, frantically trying to figure out how I would go about revealing this to everyone. Trevor was the first one to notice it, and he came up to me and patted my head, saying that it was very cool. Well, that was exactly what I wanted. My new hair turned out to be quite a spectacle, and for a few days I got a hint of the attention and admiration I so craved. My interest in Pokemon faded away at this time. In 3rd grade, Pokemon was considered cool, and everyone was playing it. Towards the end of 4th grade, I found out that everyone was growing out of Pokemon, and the only ones who played it were the geeky kids. I heard some kids joking about how lame Pokemon players were, and I decided it was time to quit. I talked to James about this. He was still interested in Pokemon, so I gave him my Charizard card as a gift and as an act of my resignation from the game. Pokemon gave me some really happy and memorable experiences, but it was time to move on. I then started to notice that all of the cool kids were interested in skateboarding. I had never even ridden on a skateboard before, But if I wanted to be cool, I had to become a skateboarder. I expressed this to my parents, and my father was glad that I was showing an interest in an active sport. He took me to the store, Val Surf, on Ventura Boulevard to buy me a new skateboard, and I was fascinated by all of the different choices. I settled for a red Val Surf branded skateboard, and they took it down from the wall and built it for me. I was thrilled to have this new skateboard and the possible chance it gave me to be a cool kid. It was time to start practicing. I found it very hard to even ride on it in the beginning, and I spent many hours outside trying to get the hang of it. And that was that. I was now a skateboarder, though not yet good enough to reveal myself as one to the kids at school. This was the start of an obsession to copy everything the supposed cool kids were doing. Okay. Whew. Okay, age 9 to 13 is the next stage. And let's see how long that stage is. Okay, 10. Wow. He has a lot to say about age 10. That was and then there's 11. 11's pretty long too. 12. Wow. 13. Okay, part 4. What's going on here? (13 to 17). Oh, look, they. Okay. 14. 15. 16. 17. Wait, so 17 to 19, wasn't that 17? Yeah. So it's not really 17 unless he continued 17. 18. Yeah, it looks like that's what happened. That was just 3 years before he died. 19. Okay, 19 to 22. This is the last end game. Part 6. Okay. This is the end. Okay. 20. Wow, a lot happened when he was 20. 21. Is that the end? But he was 22. What happened? That looks like the end, right? Epilogue, yeah. And... but he doesn't talk about age 22. I guess he was nearly, well, he was almost 23, so yeah, 20. Oh, here's 22. Okay, I missed it. All right, so that's it. It's gonna take so long to get here. And there's a lot of blank. 2, 3, 4. Okay, is that the end? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Well, let's see. Where were we? I don't even remember now. September 5th. What is that? That's my wedding anniversary. I don't know that that's any coincidence. All right, so I'm still in childhood, 4th grade. It's the end of 4th grade. Let's see, I just need to... Wow. I've got a long way to go. This is going to take like a lot of live streams because I think I need to probably wrap up right now. I'm just trying to see where I am. 17, 16, 15, 14. Right, there's this, and then no. 13. Is that where I was? No. Yeah, I didn't make it to 12 years. No. Chat rooms, no. 11 years old. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I must be around here. Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember that, so I must not have been this far. Yeah, there it is. Part 3. That's where I am. Okay, so I think this is a good... I think that Elizabeth... I hear Elizabeth right now. This is around the time that I need to take care of Elizabeth. So I think this is a good point to stop. And it'll be part 3 when I continue again. And look, we're going to start at part 3. The last period of contentment. Wow, so he had a lot of periods of contentment. Till age 13, it was really good, it sounds like, or at least semi-good. I mean, as good as life on Earth can be. All right, so we'll pick up here. This is page 18. Yeah, I left off at age 9, and we're now we're still at age 9. Is that right? Maybe it was page 9. Yeah, page 9. So we've gone through 9 pages. It's 141 pages. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I got myself into, but I do want to finish this. This is important. Okay. All right. So I don't even think anyone is on here. Let's see. That's not it. Wait. This is not live streaming. Here's live streaming. Let's see. Why is it? Oh no. Oh, I'm playing it. Oh my god. It says end stream though. Look, it's okay. See, it looks like I don't know what this is. This is like from before, but I guess it's not. It's supposed to be down here. See, I think this is right now. I don't know. Hopefully this recorded. I'm a little worried it didn't. After all this work, I don't know. I hope somebody finds it interesting. I just feel like it's really important, and I don't know. Maybe I should just pre-record it instead of live streaming it. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But yeah, it shows that this is what's on the screen over at YouTube, and that concerns me because this is what's on the screen, my screen right here. This is what's on my screen. Why is it over here? So I hope this, I do hope it went through. Anyway, till next time. Part 3 is next.